Backbone, episode 4, here with Charles Beckinsale. The royal family have got their King Charles here in Australia and snowboarding globally. We got ours. Charles Beckinsale, welcome to Backbone.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, good to have you. Want to talk about where it all started, where it began. Foster to Jindabyne, Pat's Patch. How'd you end up here?
We just kind of grew up in Foster Tuncurry, and just surfing and skateboarding as a kid. And my mum, when my mum and dad got divorced, I was probably about 6, and then she kind of raised my sister and I.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where she was just like not really getting ahead, just financially, kind of like hand to mouth type stuff. And then she decided she wanted to up and do a season again one day and relive her ski instructor days.
Yeah, get amongst it.
Yeah, she's a bit loose, which is good for us.
Yeah.
And we ended up coming down to Jindabyne. We stayed at Pat's Patch for the first season, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
good start.
Yeah, she would ski instruct at Threadbow, and then we would hike up the access trail to Merritts because we didn't have passes, and we would just hike up there with a pack lunch, and then do laps on the T-bar, which is the park T-bar.
Yeah. No ticket checking.
Nah, so we just became like park rats pretty much straight off the bat, and with skating and then surfing kind of a background a bit, we were really frothing on
Just loved it straight away.
Yeah, and before we were at Pat's Patch, we actually we were kind of couch surfing in a staff housing place, so we're hanging out with a lot of snowboard instructors at the time. That I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty sketchy looking back now, but they were pretty rad. They took us under their wing and showed us around. Yeah.
Any names of the instructors there that you can remember? Any dudes that were?
There was like Ben Hiram was one of them.
Yeah.
All these guys are long gone now. Nick Rochester.
Yeah.
I think he went on to be the park manager at some point in Park City when it was kind of big.
Yeah.
I think he's out now too.
Early days.
Yeah, they're all just like snowboard nerds, and showed us. I think they're the ones that exposed me to the first videos, like Simple Pleasures and Decade and things like that. That just got me hooked.
Yeah. I remember all those vids. That I think one of them got burnt out on my VHS player in the caravan in Jindy.
Yeah.
That was my first season, doing the same sort of thing, hiking up, but doing what they have, pay before you, or play before you pay or something deal. You could get on the first lift to the top and
really
jump on and then see if you wanted to pay. We'd get the first lift and obviously never pay, hit the park T-bar and be there all day. Same thing, pack lunch, you know.
You can't imagine a try before you buy these days.
Yeah, no, I don't think any global resort's going to do that for anyone these days. But back to it, early days, in Jindy, snowboarding. How'd you get onto? I remember the first stickers I saw you with were probably POW, Option, NFA, Dragon.
The Power one was the first one.
Yeah.
And that was because I kind of got to a point where I was riding around Threadbow a bunch, riding pretty good, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I bumped into Nugget, Ryan Gardner, who was the filmer for Digital Snowboard Mag back then.
He was the man back then.
Yeah, and Damon Haler, who kind of I thought was Australia's Devon Walsh.
Yeah.
And I was so obsessed with the way he used to ride, and I actually it basically ended up Nug went and put a word in with Shane at POW.
Yeah.
And POW just started giving me flow and then put me on Never Summer Snowboards to start.
Oh, yeah.
And then Option came a few years later.
Yeah.
They talked to the reps and got me sponsored with Dragon. I think Rusty came along because of Damon early on, and they were the first kind of majors.
Yeah.
And Dragon still look after me now and give my kids goggles and stuff.
Sweet. Shout out those guys then.
Yeah,
that's a good relationship. What, like 20 plus years then?
Yeah, be at least 20 years now. Yeah, pretty old.
At least they're looking after you. That's good. Good to have some of that in the Aussie industry, I think. Older guys not getting looked after is something pretty common in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Australians sort of just get a bit forgotten about as they get a bit older, I think.
I think is that kind of if you're still doing things with the industry, I think I look at Ryan Teeney as another one.
Still very relevant.
Yeah, he still rips around and still shreds over half the kids he coaches.
100%.
And I don't know, for me, if I see an old guy do like a big front 3 or a 5, I'm like, I'm stoked. And like,
Yeah.
I think our generation is the one that kind of makes the calls financially on if you buy a pair of goggles or a pair of pants for your kids or
Yeah.
yourself. Like, so I think there is that kind of relevance in
That makes sense,
in
doesn't
that
it?
age group too.
Yeah.
Especially if there's a nostalgia aspect, you know.
Oh,
But-
100%. Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff I see these days, you know, I'm like, that's pretty much the same kit as back in the 90s, you know what I mean? I even seen on the bomb hole they were talking about designing jackets, and Granny was like, oh, just look up, you know, Dub 93 or 94 or something, you know, that get those jackets, the yellows and the greys, you know, so like the nostalgia stuff is still
like
still kicking.
Even like when I was in Utah this year, like I was hanging around and just seeing all these old kicker spots, and it just gave me that energy, like wow, it's just like where JP Walker did that trick, and you want to go and like, you know, have a couple of hits just for your own peace of mind. But like I started like looking on Instagram and stuff was popping up, like JP Walker's jacket from Decade or something was in the thrift store in Utah, and they were posting about it like it was I was like, I'd almost go buy one.
Oh mate, some of the garages that would probably have some of those jackets in them still to this day. Imagine what they're worth now. Like,
You wonder who's like sitting on an old forum board and doesn't know it.
Oh, for sure. I got one sitting in my room actually.
Really?
Sweet Peter Line.
Which one?
One with the rainbow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's never had a bass grinder. It's still got the like sintered grooved bass, and
They were shit boards back then.
they're so heavy, man. They're so heavy. I'd like to look at them like still stiff as now. But
well, like my sister got like the Peter Line. It was like the blue one with the girl on it.
Yeah.
She got it on special one year from Balmoral Boards or something.
Yeah.
And I was already sponsored with Never Summer at the time, so I couldn't go and buy the boards that I saw. And but yeah, she rode that, and I was always like, oh wow, that's such a sick board. I don't know where that is now, but yeah, I wish we'd kept it.
Well, you brought up your sister there. I remember her ripping around too. Actually, she ended up riding for Genius or Forum, didn't she, at some point?
Yeah, she rode for Genius for a while. She's on Rip Curl for a long time too. And Dragon, I guess, with me since the start. But she was really good during her time. Like we were in Whistler, and she would ride. There's like Priscilla Levac and people like that were on the global teams.
Yeah.
But she was doing like, you know, cab 270 and 270 out into like C boxes, which was kind of cutting edge back then.
I remember seeing some of them. They were like killer too. Like.
Yeah, and like, you know, cab fires and backfires on like 40-foot jumps, which for the time for chicks was pretty huge. Pretty huge.
Yeah.
Probably the equivalent of a double cork now.
Yeah.
But she was really cool and had great style. But she blew her knee out and kind of she kind of got into boys, I guess, for a minute, and took her eyes off the prize and just kind of let it slip a bit. I was a bit scared to get back on the horse.
It happens when you get to a certain age, doesn't it? I mean, I've seen so many kids, even snowboarding, even surfing and skateboarding as well. You know, there could be a prodigy. They get to 18, you know, discover booze and girls, and they're just like, or boys, you know, if they're a girl, and it's just like,
especially around here, you just see it derail. Like the amount of careers that were like so promising, and then just seeing them completely nosedive.
Take the wrong path, and
there's a list of them. But I mean, you know, like you look at a Scotty James, and I mean, it's the ones that kind of like navigate through the bullshit and don't get dragged down by the
100%
the people trying to just like throw drugs at them and free drinks and shit.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's a huge part of Australian culture, not only Australian snowboarding too. Like,
I don't think it's not bad intention in it. They're all just having fun. But it's just like, you know, like you're like, you want some of these, or you want, you know, let me get you another shot or whatever. And, you know, you got to be pretty disciplined to say no and say you're going to go home and wake up fresh and rip tomorrow. But,
well, every event, every promo comes with booze, you know, comes with a party sort of thing. So they sort of go hand in hand, but it's a cycle a lot of kids fall into. So if you're watching kids, watch how the big dogs do it. You heard him, Scotty James himself. They don't party like that. So
I had my time with it for sure. But like I met like my wife Amy. She was we went to school together in Monaro early on, and then I met her. I think we were about 19. Probably 20 when we started dating. And I'd kind of started young with the partying because of snowboarding being sponsored. From about 16 with a fake ID, and then by the time I was like 20, I was right into all the bad shit. And she basically told me it was if I couldn't pull out of it and just be normal, she was done with it. So I stopped.
Yeah.
And yeah, everything just went like that afterwards, which is cool.
Well, we're sitting here in this beautiful home. Obviously, you've done something right. You know what I mean? You and her. So big ups for that. That's good move. Obviously.
Yeah, she's been like the backbone of it all. To be honest, like just really. I just feel like when you're young and you're a dude, you spend so much of your mental capacity thinking about chasing chicks.
Oh yeah.
And partying, and then partying is like something that just is there with it. And I just think, you know, once you kind of pick one and knuckle down, then you end up with like all this mental capacity you can put into, you know, focus on where you want to go and what you want to do.
Yeah.
And then that's you know, I was obsessed with snowboarding, and then a couple of injuries drove me into park building.
Yeah.
And then the park building stuff, I was just like, wow, this is a wide open lane.
Yeah.
And I you know, really wanted to get to the top, so I just
did it.
Went hard, back-to-back winners forever. And yeah.
Well, that's something I wanted to bring up. 18, building the park at Threadbar, driven into it by an injury.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you around with a shovel. Every wedge you built before that even was pretty precision. Another story I'll bring up about that, with rakes and shovels though later. Was that something you wanted to do when you were making all your hits primo, or was it just, you know, injury, I'm going to work for the resort sort of thing?
I kind of, like, I was into park building before the injury.
Yeah.
And Damon Haler was kind of like a big influence on that. Yeah. Because he worked park crew, and the guys that they had on the park crew were like rad. I mean, there was like Chatty Coles, who was like a good boarder back then too. Yeah. And there was a few of them on that crew. Yeah. But you know, like basically the whole local crew of like rippers was working on the park crew.
I remember that whole crew too. They were pretty.
Yeah, and there was like the guy running it early on was like Matty Gilder, and he would build like snow caves and go and smoke bowls in them. Yeah, it was super unprofessional, hilarious. Yeah. But he had done a lot of shit in Worcester and things like that early on, and was like, for the time, he knew his shit. Yeah. And then along came Benny Hazlitt, who was still a mate of mine, and he was the boss at that point, and he was like kind of a fast-talking, you know, hustler from Sydney, pretty funny dude.
He knew how to wangle the money out of people.
Yeah, and he used to be a TTR judge as well back then, like he'd done the rounds too, so he had some depth. But yeah, those guys on the park crew, like, once maybe want to do it just so I could ride with them. Yeah, yeah. So I volunteered for 2 years, just hanging out, and then eventually Damon put a word in, and Hazlitt gave me a job. Yeah. A paid job on park crew, and you know, I was stoked. But at that time I was getting paid to snowboard, so I would film when I was overseas, and use my travel budget to film and travel and do that stuff for the mags and the videos, and then I would come home, because there wasn't really much happening in Australia. I would just work park crew and save my money up to go and do it all again next year. So it was kind of like a part-time job. But the big attraction was, like, the parks were terrible. Like, we'd be dragging out picnic benches and shit like that to slide, whatever you could do.
Yeah, for sure.
And the jumps were like, you know, they'd push a pile of snow, roll over with a cat. It was like trash landing. And then we'd be out there with like shovels and scoops trying to stack wedges out of what they'd left.
Just the remnants of it.
Yeah, just absolute dog shit cat work. Because no one knew. And the park cats they weren't park cats, they were just regular cats. And no one had really seen that stuff before, so we were all just winging it, trying to make stuff that we saw in the videos. Yeah. And even that back then was shit. So so we were just having a crack, and we wanted to basically steer the direction of where it was going. Yeah. So.
We sure did that, mate. And looking at now, fast forward from then to now, like wanting to steer the ship out. I don't know who else is steering it if you're not right now. So, you know, big ups for that, and seeing that dream so early on, because as a snowboarder, and I'm sure everyone that's watching this at Snowboards would, you know, say a big thank you for everything you've built and done, not just here in Australia, but globally, you know what I mean? It's it's a pleasure just to ride it all and see it, look back at photos for me, you know. Yeah.
Oh, it's been an incredible journey, and like so many good memories, and so many great opportunities that have been given, so thanks for everyone that's given me a chance.
Sick. Well, there you go, guys. You heard him. He thanked you. You should be thanking him next time you see him. If you see him at a bar, buy him a soda water if he's got his kids. Buy him a beer if he's chilling, you know, or give me a high five at least. At least that's all you can do. Back to the park stuff though. Maybe you were volunteering at Thredbo. This story that I'm going to bring up, but I remember you rocking up to Perisher. The S-rail was down the bottom, below the bottom jump. You may have had your own rake or shovel, or did you just grab that from the park crew maybe?
I probably grabbed it from the park crew.
Yeah. I remember, I don't even know if you had a pass for Perisher that year, or you might have had double passes, I don't know, but I don't think I even saw you get on the T-bar. You came straight to the S-rail. No one had front boarded this or backlit this back then, by the way. This was a full MBD. I don't know, you had a filmer with you, I think, because I remember seeing it, but I don't know if you rocked up with him. Was that like a...
Yeah, I think Nick was just up there, or maybe we went up together.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had, I think it was, Perisher went through an era where they had like crazy circus rails. They would build like wild shit. That was kind of cool. Like
the double dipper, the
like
dragon thing.
Yeah, like a big budget one year, and they were like, we're going to build a fucking 30-foot wall ride. And you're like, wow, okay. And then so they built this crazy shit. And then one year they built like a crazy double roller coaster rainbow. Yeah. And then the S-rail, which was probably my favourite, because the wall ride was like enormous, and you had to like haul ass to get up it.
Yeah.
I mean,
get grippy too.
Yeah, it's sketchy. And like, you know, the transition wasn't right with the cat. It was hard to get there. And then the double rainbow we used to hike, and it would just be like this set up in Leichhardt, and you would just hike it, and everyone would be trying to 50 or board slide it and get to the end, and it was just a day-long mission.
It was just like a buck fest. You'd see a few people just getting poo each way.
Yeah, it was like full Challenger rail.
Yeah.
And then the S-rail rocked up, and I just was like, I gotta try and backflip around that.
Yeah.
And I got it pretty early, and that was the first day it was in, I think.
Yeah.
But just like we hadn't ridden stuff like that before, so it was super fun. I didn't ride Perisher back then, but like every now and then I'd hear like they had something cool. Yeah. I'd come over and ride it for a day or something.
Well, I remember me, Robbins, Dano, Riley, the boys, we were always like, oh yeah, he's here, you know, that sort of thing. I was thinking, like, what's he got there? What's he doing there? You know, like, because he'd always be hiking or whatever. And I remember that session, I think we might have jumped in on it.
Yeah.
I definitely got a couple of things on it around that time, but I don't know if it was that day.
Yeah.
But I remember being pretty stoked. I got a couple of things on that. Just seeing stuff like that in movies at the time, you know, we didn't have much like that, you know.
I was like big ups to Perisher for that stuff, because I mean, like,
stage was...
That was the area sliding picnic tables and just crap you could get on the hill. And then they would just come along with like a wall ride straight out of the movies from Mammoth or some double rainbow from a Camper Champions session. You're just like, fuck yeah.
Well, remember the big dogs that came out all of a sudden then too, like Andy Finch, Chris Coulter, those guys came out and like they were hitting that thing proper, I remember too, and it made a lot of Aussies step up their game that year too.
Yeah, and it was like a proper, like the pipe there was like really good. It was, for the time, it was like one of the better pipes. Yeah. And it was probably 16 feet. Yeah. But those guys would come out and just destroy it. And like, you know, you had Benny Bright and people. The Benny Bright at the time was like the local maniac from Cooma. He had like these big, I mean, one year he had these like zebra fur pants on.
Oh, that's right. And
I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
What's he up to?
Yeah. And then, I ended up being really good friends with him and Tora. Yeah. And my sister was friends with Tora, so we'd like all ride together and when we got the chance. But yeah, Benny would just do huge methods and alley-oop rodeos. He grabbed nose too. I remember a couple of killer ones I saw back in the day. Back roadie nose. Yeah. Even like, I don't know, last time I saw him do a good one of those was like Mammoth bottom jump. Yeah. And he was like Tora's coach at the time, stepped back from riding himself. And he still was just like, hold my drink, bitch, boom.
Yeah.
And then even like 2 years ago in Sussex at Stomping Grounds, like, he's hilarious. He's like crusty as, and he's just standing on the pipe and he's watching Scotty do these backside airs. And I'm like, fuck, they're pretty big. Looking good, huh? And he goes, oh, I could go that big. And I'm like, really? And he goes, oh yeah, watch. And he like hikes up, straps his board on, starts trying to do backside airs, and he's going like big straight off the bat. And then he's like getting as high as Scotty on a backside air, but just looking kind of scary, you know, because when you get that high, you're like, am I in the pipe or am I going to deck out? And he's just like, but yeah, he was nailing like big methods. Yeah. And you can tell he was a bit rusty, but he's still got the dog in him. Yeah. Like, It was pretty sick.
We're trying to get him on the show. Clump's going to have a chat to him. I don't know if he said yes or not. So
He's a mad introvert.
if you're watching this one, Benny, we'd love to have you on.
Yeah,
Because get inside that mind.
Yeah, he's a real backgrounds kind of guy. Like he doesn't really put himself out there much.
Yeah.
Like even he doesn't have social media. Doesn't have like I get him on WhatsApp. Like because he changes numbers. Like it's just a bit of an enigma.
Yeah.
But interesting cat.
Yeah, I'm interested in people like that too. I've got a bunch of mates like that. So if you're down, Benny, even just come hang out. And we won't even do it. I'll just talk about it later or something, or maybe not even. We'll just sit down.
Yeah, have a beer.
Some of the legends of snowboarding. I want to talk about some of the legends that inspired you. You brought up Damon Haler before, Nugget, those guys.
Yeah.
Who played a part? Like obviously Damon Haler with Rusty was a big thing there. Or who else? Who else was in there?
Around that vintage, like Jason Duff was kind of pretty rad too. Like those guys used to hit some really big shit. There was like a crew of them that maybe want to stay riding Threadbar, even though Perisher was doing really good shit with the park. Perisher always had like a real drive with the terrain park, and they've got that front valley, which is like, even now, like still impossible to beat as far as like the lap and the terrain and snowmaking. It's just a shame they let the pipe stuff go, Yeah,
man, I still miss it every day. Not that I was ripping it every day, but
I feel like it might make a resurgence. Hopefully Threadbar kind of giving it a nudge now will make him get back after it. But
Vale's got the money too, don't they? I mean, like it's just...
I fucking hate snowboarding though, I feel.
Yeah, well there's a couple of people, I won't go too far into that are involved in that in Australia that I know for a fact hate snowboarding, so...
Yeah, starts with a T.
Yeah.
She's in Hotham now.
Oh, well, sweet. Right.
It's, I don't know, it's like one of those things, like I think the Vale model is just this big thing where it's like Walmart, you buy your pass when we say you buy your pass, and like you come get your runs and piss off, and there's no real... I just feel like there's a lack of like the niche shit, Every resort's getting so big with so much like customer base now that they just know that they're selling passes, they're like selling their food and beverage, but like there's just, so it's like whether they do a really good job on the niche stuff that matter to the experience, or they don't do it at all. It makes no difference to the bottom line other than a positive impact because they're not spending as much. So I just think like stuff like parks is now like slipping off the table in that direction.
They can't see a direct consumer to them sort of
because you can never put like a direct figure on how much the park is making, and that is the biggest problem that every park program in the world faces. Like you can't just go, we build a big jump, pros will come, you get a photo on Instagram, everyone knows about this place, but it's like, are the people buying the tickets to ride that? And then if there's, this many people come to the resort and that many buy tickets and it costs that much to run it, is it really worth it? There's all those arguments you have to kind of put forward and justify the existence day after day. And the worst thing for me was like, people that didn't like the terrain park at Perisher would be like, hey, come and have a look out here at Front Valley on a day when it's shitty and windy and no one's hitting the bottom jump or no one's hitting the park that much. And they're like, look how many people are on Front Valley and look how many people are in the park. And you're like, it's a fucking wind hold day and everyone's reduced to here. So Front Valley looks really busy, but the park is too windy for the jumps and the light's flat. So
and it might be a Thursday, everyone's been out the night.
So you're like calling this meeting on the worst possible time just to like try and drive your agenda, and it just used to drive me nuts.
Yeah, well that's, I guess when you're talking big business like that and their sort of budgets and money, like...
But my argument was always like, look at Front Valley. Like you've got, if you look at everyone that gets off the V8, they only go like down the centre lines. They're not going all the way over to ride like A-line right by the T-bar. And so if you took the park away, that whole area where the park sits would just become a ghost town.
Nothing anyway.
Like that other spot. Instead of this like field of dreams that inspires the kids, and like you're on that chair and you're seeing the cool shit that's happening.
Everyone that gets on that chair too, like you're looking, you know what I mean, watching it like, like that just in itself, you know what I mean, if that's gone, what happens then? What are they going to put the races on there and they're going to slalom down it and train? Like,
well, I had like, my mum made me ski first early on. I remember being up at Perisher one time and like, it was just for nightboarding, and there was just like snowboarder ripping down front valley, and it was like a cold night, and he did like a massive toe side carve and just flicked a big spray up, and then pull heel side back underneath it, and it was just like something you do with your eyes shut nowadays. But you're like, I saw that and I was like, wow, snowboarding's fucking rad. And then to see and that left a huge impression on me, even now. And then you look across, and now the kids can like look at people doing double corks and like.
And some of the biggest names in the world too, you know what I mean?
Like, and it's like, you see that, you're like, I want to come back and like be that guy. Or learn how to do cool shit like that.
For sure.
But I mean, it just, to take something like that away and just have like punters bashing into each other doesn't really, like, doesn't inspire anyone, I don't think. And they still have to like, I feel like everyone needs to like, still hold on to that niche stuff and the culture stuff. Even as a big conglomerate resort, like, you still need to, you know, inspire kids and like, you know, make the sport look cool.
Well, Perisher definitely had a more local feel before Vale, I reckon. Like, even just with things, there was a lot more of a like approachable people to people sort of thing, you know what I mean? Now it's sort of like, oh, well, I work for them, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm glad you got to be able to speak about it, because we got Dougie and Craggers coming on at some point, and I know they're going to have to bite their tongue on this sort of topic, because it's...
I'm out now, so I'm all good. But honestly, like, Dougie and Craggers were part of that, like, when Perisher was just, like, absolutely summiting, and New Zealand just emptied out. You know, like, Cadrona and Snowpark. Like, Snowpark kind of died, and then Cadrona inherited the business, and then they had a pretty good run. Like, Cadrona do an incredible job. I'm a big fan of what they do, and the commitment they have to parks and things. But basically, like, the weather there is kind of brutal, and they're exposed in the Alpine, whereas like Australia's, you know, like Front Valley, you can even ride when it's shit weather.
It's out of the wind.
And even if it is like crappy, you can still ride rails, and you can still get to the resort. So you know, everyone's like, oh, what's up with Australia? And then, you know, it was like, I had Brandon Dodds that came out. I ended up being the park manager there for, I think, 5 years. And Dougie was there as well, and Craggers too, and like, we all kind of just were this like, basically, superpower, all of us together. And there was no fat on that crew, it was just like alphas. And it's just like, because normally you go to one resort and the park program will have, you know, one alpha builder, and then everyone else is around them. Sort of
learning off them.
Whereas like Perisher was just like 4 of us. And everyone was good. And we even had Jeremy Carpenter, who does the pipe for me for Stomping Grounds. And he's the best pipe cutter in the world. And he was just happily cutting that 16-foot pipe and riding it every day, and loved being there. And like, the resort had no idea how good he was at his job, or really cared. I think the end of it for him was because he asked for his own room, because he was 40 or something.
I was going to bring that up. I know that they tried
like,
to give him...
He wants his own room? Like, no shit. He's like 40 years old, he's the best in the world at what he does, or like 35 or something like that. Doesn't want to share a room with some kid that smells like a bong.
He's in there ripping billies, and he just wants to have his own room and kitchen or whatever. And
he's
just
a professional. Treat him as a fucking professional.
Didn't he build a like Mountain Dew pipe or something like the year before, or in that sometime in between there? He'd done some big job, like a proper pipe.
He's American. He did like X Games. He did like US Opens. Like,
I remember thinking like, and they're saying he can't have his own room. This is the guy who built all that, and now he's here, not even getting to build what he wants to, you know.
I mean, his weekly salary for 6 days a week wouldn't even be what his day rate is now. Like, it's probably like, I mean, just like, they had the best guy at the best price, and just like didn't really put a value on pipes. Well,
I don't think they do. Well, hopefully they do soon, because
but Dougie and Craggers are like still killing it. And the park up there looks great. And like, massive props to both of them. Like, big fan of Doug's jumps and everything, and
well, I've been 50-50ing everything I can and riding around every wedge, so it's been good for me. It's been fun so far. But
I like it when he builds Leichhardt, because it's kind of like it's a fun size. I think Doug's got a real, like, he builds in his mind, I think, for himself too.
For sure.
And his mates. So he just, it's like the ultimate medium stuff. So
I remember that bowl at the end of Front Valley, that elbow, it was like quarter, you know. I heard he got in a bit of strife for that, but like, everyone loved it. That was, so if we can see something like that, maybe even just like a half cradle Dougie, you know, like something like that. I don't know, maybe something
They
loved
they
it.
need to get that cutter going. I think it's a bit of a relic now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we just I helped kind of get the deal for Threadbow's one. We bought that secondhand in Iceland, and Scotty generously donated the money for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they're not that crazy to get secondhand cutters now.
Oh, really?
No, I mean, especially if it's like an 18, which I think is the size Perisher should probably get.
Yeah.
It'd be cool. I mean, there's some amazing people in mountain operations at Perisher that do back the parks, like Andrew Kennedy and stuff. Like they really, you know, they'll push back against some of the anti-park sentiment.
Yeah.
And you know, like there's still cats in the park, and there's still a good park crew, and they've still got Doug and Craigers. Yeah. Like it's you know, I shouldn't say it's like Perisher not supporting it. They do a great job supporting it, as do Threadbow. But it's like it's just always a couple of people that have different opinions from ski school.
I mean, you can see the difference just with corporate resort and, well, whatever you call Threadbow, I guess, if it's not a corporate resort. Last year, perfect example for me, I've been at Threadbow, Perisher, 20 plus years. Yeah. Getting some food, it's pretty limited options. Kebabs is what most people will eat if they're on the hill. I went to Merritt's. Dude, I've never seen a bigger, better selection of food. I saw fresh juice. I heard you could get a steak. I saw pork knuckle. There was options, you know what I mean? Like that sort of thing makes a difference, I think, to a resort as a consumer, you know what I mean? I'm not going to Threadbow every day. I'm not, you know, just blind. Things like that stood out to me. Perish is pretty bland. That's one thing I'll say about the food selection. Maybe they make it too expensive for the renters. I don't know, but Threadbow's got that covered.
Like it's hard to run a business, I think, for a lot of people up there because it's such a short season. It's even like, you know, the food and beverage in Jindabyne. That's my biggest beef. It's like Jindy hasn't had a new restaurant in how long? Like it's just it's such a limited option. And then in summer, like they're barely open.
Everything's closed.
It's hard for them to like get enough volume, and then in winter they're just, you can't get in because it's like everyone's trying to get in.
Which is surprising because it seems like there's a lot of money in Jindabyne now, like a lot of new money. You got the mining money, you know. Airbnb seems to be going through the roof.
Well, I think Airbnb's sobered out now because everyone had this like great business idea, and I think that was what ruined the place really. In my mind, like as a community, it's fucked it because everyone now that lives locally and works for the resorts, like, you know, I did like having to buy in Berrydale and Calcite and stuff and out of town because town is occupied by everyone that thinks it's like going to make them rich to have an Airbnb and just like charge $1,000 a night. And even like my friends that come and visit for, you know, like to train and stuff like that or shred from overseas, like they're like, wow, it's like almost as expensive as Aspen. And I'm like, it's Jindabyne. Like we don't even really get proper power days. So like everyone just needs to, I don't know, chill out and agree and let more business let more of the money get to like the businesses instead of just the accommodation. But I think it's all going to mellow out at some point. It can't just keep going that way because it's unaffordable.
Well, I remember Matty Refuel, what's he, your brother-in-law, Zach's brother, Matt?
Oh, yeah.
He opened a place in Perisher at the Yellow Pub. Did healthy food, rolls. Place pumped. It's like the only place you could get something healthy for ages.
I remember that, Refuel, wasn't it?
We even started calling him Matty Refuel because everyone was like, Matty who? Like, Matty Refuel? Because there was like 5 or 6 Matties on the hill that year, you know. And he was always hooking the boys up to at the end of the day if the rolls had to be gotten rid of. But what I was getting at, that place pumped for 3 or 4 years. He sold it and they started doing deep fried everything again, you know what I mean? It was like...
It's just easy shit. Like, and they sell, like they can literally sell you shit at top dollar and you're like, well, it's all it's here, so I'll take it. And I think that's a problem. But like you go to resorts overseas and like the good ones, like they have a lot of privately owned outlets where, you know, you get good shit because it's their business and they care instead of just like, it's another outlet, like point of sale type stuff.
Just robot style.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know, like Jindabyne lacks having a few extra spots, a few different experiences. Like you look at Wanaka, and they're like got great food, great like entertainment bars,
hatted restaurants and things around.
I mean, Ginny could do that. It's just like everyone thought they'd just get an Airbnb instead of putting the money into starting businesses.
Yeah, for sure. Put it in the wrong areas.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to some positive stuff. Jindy Street Rails. I shared a clip of that front board, of that one, NBD. I saw there was a session on it, maybe, I think it was last year. Yeah. Still getting hit. Want to talk through those times?
Yeah, I had like a lot of energy. 1 or 2 seasons there where I just thought like no one had done handrail stuff really around Jindy. Nugget was really into it. He'd done a little bit of stuff the year before, or 2 years before. And I was like pretty fired up. I think he hit Old Town. It was like this rail. Back then it was like, seemed pretty big. Because I was hitting big stuff. And he was board sliding it. And Freddie, I think.
Yeah, Bugs and Duff too had
Duff
shots.
As well. But then like I rocked up to that session, and Nate Bozung, I always remember this, was in town with Chad Ostrom and all these old pros on 32. And it was the time that 32's global team was here. Kevin Sandsland was here too. And then they were all just like out for dinner one night, and we were sessioning the rail, and they just posted up, and we're watching a session. Those guys were like superstars in snowboarding at the time. And I ended up doing like, I think, switch front board, front side 1, switch 50, front 2, all in front of him. And then Bozang was like frothed. And then Sandsloan was like, give me high fives. And so did Chad Ostrom. He was just like, that was sick, man. And I was probably like 16, 17 years old, like absolutely pumped.
So Sandsloan, he would have been, is that how the option deal came about, NFA, through that? Or was that just coincidental?
I think it was the next year I went to Whistler. Like I went to Whistler, did 1 season, and the next season I met him. But it was kind of a different thing. Like there was a guy called Simone Chamberlain who was he won the Nixon Jib Fest, and he was like the absolute jib king on the come up.
Nomus.
And then he and I would ride a bit together, and then I went and hit some handrails in Vancouver when it snowed, and I backlipped the 32 stair.
Another one with the round end.
And then the shot didn't really turn out because it was pissing rain. The flashes weren't working, and I still have the shot, and I'm stoked. But like the mags were like too grainy. But I was like, something that big was just like twice as big as anything that had been the mags before, and they didn't run it. And the same night I front boarded through a double kink, which was like just after Shakedown came down, like, and JP Walker just front boarded through a double kink. And I was just like obsessed with JP Walker and trying to do all the tricks that he was doing right after he did them. And then that one day kind of spread around Whistler, and Sansalone heard about it, and he was like, and then he put it together. He's like, oh, that's the kid from Australia. And then he took Simone Chamberlain and I down to Options Factory in Vancouver.
And gave you the hookup.
And then, he's like, I want you riding my pro model board. And like, we just rolled around some warehouse picking out whatever we wanted.
So
and that was how Options started, the two of us. And, from Kevin hooking us up. But back to the Jindy Rails thing. That was the first one that we'd kind of got after. And then I just started wandering around town, like looking for stuff. And then Saf Farrell and Nug and there's a bunch of us that would like all chip in, and we got a trailer. I think it might have been Shane from Cherry Power's trailer maybe. And we'd load up, like we shovel snow into the trailer and bring it down to town and just start hitting shit. And we hit like the LJ rail was one of them. And the Rusty ad with the... I don't think anyone ever hit it.
Sweatbands too. You had triple. Did you have triple for that
Halloween costume, like JP Walker?
So sick.
Full JP rip-off. Like he was doing sleeveless hoodies and like sweatbands, and he was full Method Man style. And
matching kits, the spots and that.
And I was like all in on it. So it's funny looking back now.
Oh, back then, so sick to look back at, man. So good.
But I front boarded that. It took me 2 tries. And we got kicked out after the second. Because I think the chick or the lady running the LJ reception there was asleep, and we did it pretty late after they'd shut. I think we did that one at like 2 a.m. because we were like, we'll sneak down on a Tuesday night, no one around. And we'll quickly get it done and get out. We were quiet setting up, and then the second I landed the front board, like I landed like threw the board sideways to try and stop before the wall, and it was just like sparks flying, this horrible sound of the concrete, and
All
I
of Jindy
started
here,
into the concrete wall, which was like, and her window, like the window was like right next to where I like grabbed the wall and stopped, and then she opened the blinds and was screaming at me. I was like, shit.
She's probably thought a car's coming crashing through a wall or something, seeing sparks out the
Like,
corner
what
of
the
her
fuck
eye.
are you doing? And then she's like, get out of here, I'm calling the cops. So we all like packed our shit up and left straight away. But yeah, we were like pretty, you had to kind of be strategic about it. You had to like figure out when you could hit the spot without getting kicked out. And yeah, it became a bit of a little like nerdy little mission.
That's sick, that sort of stuff. I love those sort of stories.
And then that candlebark double kink, we hit that one. That was when it snowed.
Yeah.
It was just an opportunistic thing where like there was a big vacant block across the street.
Yeah.
So we scratched together the snow for an in-run and just ollied up under the gutter and slid that one. I got a front board through that to fakie, and that was a cover of Digital Snowboard Mag one year. And then there was the driveway rail at Nuggets.
Happy Dave, did he do that first?
He did that with me, I think.
Was it the same night?
Same session,
Yeah.
I did like a nose press front one on it, I think. And I can't remember what he got.
Kids, how have the kids, has anyone done that since?
Nah.
Wow.
I mean, like, no, it's funny to me, like, back then the parks were so shit that everyone
had to do things.
was motivated to, like, go out and find shit and do stuff. Because you're like, if you're going to hit a big rail, you've got to find it in the street. If you're going to hit a big jump, you got to go shovel it. Like, whereas now it's like they've got such a good
someone's done it for me.
Yeah, it's like they'll just eat what's on the menu instead of like cooking themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like we used to cook everything up ourselves.
Well, I remember dreaming of having like a down flat down in the park, and then I think we got like that sketchy stair one that had like the weld was bad in it at Perisher, and then just looking for things like that. So I can see why you turned to doing that sort of stuff. But the Jindy Street Rail, that one, if anyone's around, have a good look at that and think back then. That board you did it on was probably super heavy too, eh? Like in the...
Which street rail?
The LJ? Any of them, all of them. You probably rode pretty heavy boards back then, you reckon?
Yeah, technology wasn't as good.
Yeah,
that was stiff cambered things, but like I still like stiff cambered boards.
Did you ride rusty boards ever? Or was it just outerwear?
I never rode the boards, but I used to like froth on them.
Yeah.
There was a guy called Earl at Thredbo who used to do like double backflips, and he was a mad unit. But he had a rusty board. It was like a yellow one with the rusty logo on it. And I thought, because of surfing, like I loved rusty. I thought it was sick.
Well, the kids at home wouldn't even know about that. Like if you're under 30 even, they made snowboards. Rusty Australia was the thing. They had who was it? It was Grant Quinn in the early days.
I feel like it was Quinny, then he put on Damon.
Yeah.
Then Damon put me on, and I got Teeny on.
Yeah.
And then, there
was no one after that,
After that, it kind of just dropped off. I mean, the outerwear, like it was just, Quinny was the one figuring out how the outerwear should be.
Yeah, okay.
And they had no idea. They were just like figuring it out. And the outerwear was so shit.
Yeah.
I used to just like, it was at the time I got hooked up by Option in Canada. So like, I would just ride plain black Option pants and wear their jackets. And then I think Quinny ended up getting rid of me because I never wore the shit.
Didn't actually wear it?
No, because I was so young and stupid. I was like, I'd rather just look cool and I just want to look the way I want to look, instead of like wearing that shit. And then it just...
Creative freedom.
Yeah, but you were like, you're walking away from a paycheck and a travel budget to look cool. Like, fuck.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, priorities. But I had a job, so I didn't care.
Yeah, that's how it is. When you're that young, that's how things go, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. The Option NFA, we've been through that. Rusty. A lot of kids these days too, like the process of going through photos, photographers. You had a really good relationship with kids, photographers back then.
Yeah.
Himbrex, Jake McBride, Willie, I remember.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a camera in their pocket these days. How was that process for you back then? Like getting to get a call, or did you have to make the call to them and
it's weird.
run us through that?
Like I feel like it's like how kids are now with like filming with their homies and shit. Like you ride the park, someone that's good, you kind of go, you want to get some shots with us or whatever. Like it's pretty much the same process. But back then, like I feel like you had to do pretty well in comps to get noticed. And I think I did pretty well in a few comps. And then Nugget and Damon were like, do you want to come and they see I could land some tricks. So they're like, do you want to come ride ride this jump? We're going to go and build a jump tomorrow. And do you want to come out with us? And then Jake McBride would kind of be there with them and be shooting the jump. So if you got a good shot, it would go to the editors of the magazines. And but yeah, there was kind of like that gateway, like gatekeeper kind of stuff. So it wasn't just like any random could post something online or do something corny like you can on Instagram now. Or use the right song and go viral.
Make sure you get it right.
It was like, the photographers had to be of a caliber where they had a relationship with the magazine that could get the shot to the magazine to get published. And most of the time a film camera too, right? Like, all film cameras. So you couldn't just like shoot away like you can on an iPhone. Like, to tell kids now, like you'd have to like get slide film, which is really expensive. And a photographer would be like blowing film, like if you weren't doing good shit, like doing a sequence. Well, the sequences were gnarly. Like there was so much pressure if they sequenced because you had to land. And if you didn't land, like they just like burnt through tons of film and got nothing for it. And then they'd end up off you and probably didn't want to film or take photos of you again, right? Like, and if you couldn't get a good slide with them, like you wouldn't get asked to come again. So like it was good. Like it was a good pressure. And now like it's just kind of sad that the magazines aren't there like they used to, because the magazines were like the gatekeepers of like how snowboarding should look and how the culture should be represented. Because now it's just a free for all, like whatever video or clip, even if it's like someone grabbing Tindy, if it's like like at some point, like who tells the person like that's shit? It's not what snowboarding should be like. I think we need those good gatekeepers in that sense too. Like instead of like a rep who's never done anything in the park or build a jump, what I mean? Saying, oh, this kid gets this much or he doesn't get this, you know what I mean? Like, because they're good at marketing or whatever it is. The magazines were people in the know that lived it, that loved it. So that gatekeeping was necessary in those times, I thought. Yeah, it's funny too, because like a lot of brands, like they don't, it's just about selling product. And it's not like, they don't see it as a responsibility to like keep the culture of snowboarding like sacred and like documented. Whereas, which like, you obviously do, like caring so much, right? Like but I'm kind of like in that space now where I'm like, fuck, does anyone else care? Like which, and like it's not my job to go out there and enforce it, It's just like if someone cares enough to ask me, I'm always down to sit down and chat, because it's been my life and I'm really passionate about it, obviously. But that's it. But yeah, for me, like I think you look at a brand like Burton, and I think in Australia, like no one's really done it better than them. When you look at like Colby, Paul Colby's like amazing. Then you got like Xander, who's like the younger face, but he not younger compared to me, I guess. But knows his shit and like loves the culture. But then you've got like Shane Carter, who's just like a fucking encyclopedia of snowboarding. Like he's a big supporter of the show, sends me messages all the time, liking our shit. So he's a massive snowboard nerd too, and he like remembers every shot JP Walker and Jeremy Jones ever got. He's just like a good human, and like people like that that a company has identified and gone, hell yeah, that's someone that like understands snowboarding and should be here steering the ship or advising on it. But like Colby. But it's just like there needs to be more of those people that get looked after in those roles. Like even Volcom had, got Shane A's other skateboarder, but they also had Ali Thomas, who's like, she's an ex-pro snowboarder, and she was like the CEO. I remember doing a front one mute, bottom jump, big hairstyle back in the day. And even Jason Haynes had a role in one of those companies, like surf companies like Quickie or something. But like those kind of people that move up do kind of like, in a sense, like control who gets on and like how it's represented, how the ads look. Because I mean, if you got just like every marketing intern fresh out of like a uni degree that's done like 2 seasons as a ski instructor trying to like steer the ship, like what's left, It's just like there needs to be things like this, I think, because the magazines aren't there anymore. And even snowboarding globally, like we've got the fucking bomb hole now, which is amazing, but like it's not a magazine. There's no like clear video releases like a Mac Dog each year that come out where everyone's like, that's the body of work that represents the sport and the culture, or the magazine that like has a gatekeeper to like what things should be and how the sport needs to look. It's just like everyone posting shit everywhere, and like just nothing seemed like even the best clips, like you might see something groundbreaking like a quad kink backlip pretzel, and the next day it's just gone, and you're like, I don't even know where I saw it, because like,
what was that even on?
My mind's just been like brain
bombarded with it all,
rolling relentlessly, and like you just.
And you don't even know the dude's name or chick's name, you know what I mean? It's just like, oh,
like.
you like,
fire emoji.
Yeah.
And then it's gone.
Oh, well, I'm doing some of that at the moment, trying to network with people, and it just seems so just menial in the sense of like, you know what I mean? But
just the buzz of comment gives someone, it's hilarious. Dude. Like, oh, I like my shit.
Yeah, like, oh, sick. Dopamine in my head. Like, wow, cool. But that's another thing. Instagram, a lot of dudes just bringing out clips, you know, like I remember watching clips back in the day, and you could tell that they'd been edited and watched, like sliding through the kink. There was no slipping to the side. It was all between the bindings, you know. Ugly clips, good clips, some of your best, some of your worst from back in the day. You were a bit of a perfectionist, I remember, with your parts, how they went out. Yeah. What's anything you regret doing or looking like, and tell some of your best ones that you remember and stand out?
Oh, probably the things I regret, probably dressing up like
JP
Walker a bit too much, maybe.
We all did that, man. Don't worry, I think we're all trying to.
Like one career I look at in snowboarding that I thought was fucking cool was like UC Oxenden.
Yep.
And at the time you're like, UC's got no flair, he doesn't like wear quad XLs. Yeah. He's like, where's his fucking tennis headband and shit? But like the guy was like, he had XL outerwear and he snowboarded like perfectly, like good style, and then now you'll watch those parts from that era, and you're like, that could be last week, and it still holds.
It's timeless snowboarding,
like whereas like some of the shit that we're all wearing, like you just feel like, God, I don't know if I can watch it. The guy's dressed like an idiot.
Look at young Dolly now, you know what I mean? Some of the stuff you see him wearing, like, you know, shout out young Dolly for ripping whatever, but like some of those pants, dude, come on, like.
I don't really have any regrets. I mean, like I used to be really like hard on myself. Like I needed like the nose press had to be like up high. Like you had to see it.
Couldn't be saggy.
Yeah, you couldn't have any Zeechy tricks. Never be a hand down. Like you know, like your lips. Like that's my biggest grudge nowadays with this generation. Is like we used to like you do like 270s on the rails or like whatever you used to do, but didn't matter what you did. Like nollie front boards, the takeoff could never be like.
Oh yeah.
Like I mean, some of the shit you see now, you're like you double cork under that because it's so fucking big. Whereas like it had to be under the height of a step, and if it was the height of a step, you'd kind of failed, and you were like, the shot's going to be shit because you look like you got a fucking ramp under that rail. So like that LJ rail, like all we did was like put snow on the ground, and I just packed it, threw a bit of salt on it, so my edge wouldn't go through the concrete. And it was like this high, and that's.
I'll throw that photo I've got of that up too.
But that's like how it should be, because you're like we used to say skateboarders didn't have like they wouldn't bring a wooden ramp everywhere. It's super fucking gay.
You'd be sent home, you know what I mean, doing that sort of thing. Like.
And now they're like, well, like I'm doing this trick on, but you're like, well, just go faster. It's and like keep it more legit. But like there's that whole. Like my generation was just like so gnarly about that.
Oh, for sure.
And now no one cares, it seems. But
well, speaking of gnarly, Red Bull Rails #1. Do you remember when they took the snow out for the final? And there was people losing it about how dangerous it was. And it was like, I remember Banger coming running up and saying, "You got to stop this. Nuggets just hit his head. He could die. Someone could die." Like, and it was that moment. There was a heap of people getting flogged. Bark off elbows.
Banger was pretty dramatic, but yeah, that was funny because I saw the snow come away and I was like, "Fuck yeah, it's like a handrail now." And I'd been hitting heaps of handrails, so I didn't let it like get in my head. But I could see everyone else start to peak, and I was like, "Oh, cool, here we go." And I think I got a backflip down that thing. And I was like pumped. Like it was crazy long. And and they kept adding bits to it. It was
like in notches too. Like so, there was like to look at. It looked like you were going to bite, didn't it? Like I remember I rode in the day in the. Well, speaking of that, the expression session. Max Cook's got an extra go. I got bumped out. Didn't get into the final, but I'm not holding a grudge or anything about that. I've pretty much forgotten about it. But the notches in it.
Yeah, there was like these round joins. It was kind of sketchy now
Yeah.
looking at it, but
You wouldn't see that in modern snowboarding now, would you? You know,
nah. But back then, everyone rode such shit rails. They were like-
it was like whatever.
but
we're
it was
hitting
so long. Like I mean, the feeling of just being on that thing and looking at the end of it and knowing
Yeah.
it was going to come under your board and you were going
Yeah.
to get it was like, yeah. And the crowd was sick too.
Oh yeah.
There was like, that's what it misses now. Like I feel like all the events on the hill are just like a bunch of soccer parents yelling at their kids.
Yeah, yeah.
And like a handful of people.
And some poor announcer just talking to himself, just going,
Yeah.
oh, hello, yeah. Hello,
Here we go,
yeah.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
it's
it'll
like,
be RJMC. He follows the show. Shout
yeah.
out. Could be him, yeah.
Yeah, RJ, legend.
Yeah.
But there was, the vibe down there was a huge screen, like huge LED screen in the car park above First Tracks there. And there was like, the whole car park was just full of rowdy people.
I was one of
booze.
them. I was at the bottom. I was right at the end.
Sitting on roofs.
Fizz and beers.
Yeah.
High-fiving, whatever I could.
I can't remember who the MC was, but they were like hyping it up. And every time you dropped, they were like, it's Charles Beckinsale. I was like, holy shit.
They had like the spotty lights and the things going on and stuff too. It was
and you like lock on the rail, and as soon as you started getting halfway down, and it looked like you had a chance to get to the end, the crowd would just start lighting up, and you could feel the energy.
Yeah.
And I feel like those are the events that like make great shit happen.
Oh, 100%. I think Mikey Williams won that one, didn't he? That was
He did. Yeah, I think I can't remember what he did. I think it was front board maybe.
Yeah.
But he got off. He got right to the end. I think I did a backflip and came off just like a meter early.
Yeah.
It's like 100 meters long.
I couldn't find a shot. I was looking last night to try and find a shot of it with no snow underneath it. I could only find that front board or back lip of you with snow underneath it. So they took that away after a few hits, didn't they?
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't see that. I mean, they took the Cattleman's rails, that's finished now, eh? There's no actual, is there a street rail comp in Australia anymore?
Well, that Jai's Jam was my favourite. I mean, like, Cattleman was amazing, but I feel like after the first 6 years, like, that thing had a lifespan on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I mean, Max Cooks did every trick you could possibly do on it.
Yeah.
So did Robbie Walker, like Teeny.
Well, yeah.
Like, and it was gnarly. Like, I remember, like, bruised my heels there one year. I think I tried like a switchback two or something and like didn't, I landed, but just like completely, it's just a flat landing.
Yeah, yeah.
I just drove my heels in and I couldn't walk the next day.
Yeah.
But it was a heavy setup and people just go nuts on it.
Yeah.
And everything got done because it was the same setup every year. So I think it just got kind of played out.
Yeah.
But Burton kept doing it just because the crowd was insane and people were exposed to it. And I think like 80% of the people in the crowd hadn't seen it the year before.
Yeah.
So it was fucking amazing for them.
Yeah.
But for the riders and the culture, you're like, it's kind of been done now.
Been done before, yeah.
But Jai's Jam was cool.
Oh, that was sick. I went to a few of those. That was right there amongst the action too, you know what I mean? The last one I went, I don't know if it was the last one. They had to go from way up.
Yeah.
Was that, were they getting, I don't know if they got towed in. I think they had to drop, but they got towed up.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big run-in for a kinker. Like you
well, they got whipped in on a snowmobile. That's why they were gapping it. Because like I always wanted to gap it when I was a kid.
That's right.
But I welded a drop-in ramp to hit it, and I had 3 sessions on it.
Yeah.
Over the years just to get one front board.
Yeah. I remember a few of the sessions.
Belted a few times on it. But
Cheese grater stairs.
Yeah. And then they had the sled on during the event and like game changing. Like those guys were like, it was crazy because you were like, you know, old and washed and you're watching these kids do like all the 270s you dreamed and you thought, well, like, I think they're possible. Yeah. And they're just like lacing them like nothing. Yeah. And Andy James is like switch front boarding to the double kink. Like, like way better than I ever regular front boarded.
Yeah. And an old special blend jacket too, mind you. That one too. That was sick. Yeah, a little throwback.
Yeah, but he was like Andy James, like watching him ride rails now it's just like, it was like watching someone play a video game. Yeah. It's so good.
I was at the top of the park the other day and it went Val, him, and then I'm standing there, I'm like, what?
It's crazy watching Val.
Like, you know,
yeah, when you're like, Andy James is like untouchable on rails and Val comes through and switch front boards through a double kink too. Dude. And you're like, you know, we can go 20-something feet out of a half pipe, but you're like, wow.
And his board could probably knock you out. It's that stiff too, just if it hit you in the forehead, you know what I mean?
And it'll fuck up everyone on a bank slalom as well.
Yeah.
It's just incredible, like, how good he is on so many levels.
Well, speaking of those guys, they're some of the biggest names or most talented Aussie guys. Who are you seeing filling their shoes on the come up? We've had one on the show, Josh Roberts-Hahn.
Yeah, those guys are amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like they're the next batch for sure.
Yeah.
I haven't been paying too much attention locally as much as I should have.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, like I'm overseas most of the time, working with those kids on the Canadian team and stuff like that. But there's a lot of good Aussies that you see. Like, I mean, there's so many kids in that turn and burn program too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Teeny's got it.
And that
stacked roster there.
And occasionally, like, I'll walk my dog over to the airbag there and watch a few of the kids session that.
Yeah.
And like that Mila Stalker is pretty incredible too.
Yeah, right.
There's a few of those kids that are just like, fuck.
Yeah.
You know, like seeing girls do double corks.
Yeah.
That, you know, most of us never heard of.
Well, even Irish, George One's sister, we saw her backflipping the other day. What is she, like 10 years old or something, man, on the airbag? Then now she's doing them on snow, no worries. Like, what about airbags? They're clearly important for kids these days coming up. We didn't have them back then. Is it a love-hate thing for you? Like, you love to see it?
I can't talk too much shit because I designed the one that's over there.
Yeah.
But I've had so much fun riding that one.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, back in the day, you would go and build a jump out the back of Threadlow and try your tricks
for
the first time. And now park jumps are pretty good most places.
Yeah.
But still, like, you know, your first backflip or back rodeo or underflip or something like that. Like, there's just no comparison to trying on a bag because, you know, like even on a backcountry jump, if you build one, you get like a couple of chucks at it, and then the thing's just destroyed and the snow's compacted. Whereas out there, like, you just try until you get it. And for me, like, I'd done a few years where I've been building so much. I'd been riding the whole time, but not like, you know, I'd lost stuff like front seven tail. I just kept grabbing mute or melon, and I was scared to grab tail because I'm like, I just don't want to fall over and take that chance. But I went out there and I started doing like back roadie sevens, like front seven tails, like all the shit that you used to do and underflips and things. And everything was like there, the muscle memory is still there. But it just took a little session on the bag to like have the confidence to, like, you know, give them a chuck and see if they're still good. And like I learned like just stuff like working on your takeoffs, you know. Now I've got a bit older, like my switch backside takeoffs, I would break at the waist and like cork when I didn't want to. And just like having a bunch of goes doing a switch backside 5 on that bag sorted out my takeoffs. So like, you know, and I learned like a switch nose grab on a switch back 5. Which, you know, on a park jump, I don't know if I would have taken those risks because I don't try stuff I'm not going to like land and ride away from because I just don't want to get hurt.
So do you think they'd be good not just for athletes and kids trying to on the come up? You think they're good for old dogs to clear off some rust, you know, dust it off, or like
our generation's too cool for it, I think. But like, if you can get over that shit, it's a good time. And like, to be honest, like, if you think about how many weeks there's a good jump on Front Valley or at Threadlow to try stuff on of the year, it's not that many. And like that thing, you can go out on the weekends, like, you know, have a 2-hour session. On it. And even just for your health, like you're hiking that jump. Like, I mean, I haven't sweated that much in ages when I hit it. Like, I was running back up to do another underflip. Is that summer
or winter?
Summer when I was hitting it. Because the sprinklers are on and like it's just good vibes. And I just think it's so good. If you're an old guy that's like had a summer or you've had a couple of years off park jumps, but you're still like in your head, you're like gone and got fit, or you're like, I'm still in good shape. I think I could do it. Like, you should definitely go have a session.
Sounds like you're talking to me there.
And get your shit back and relive your childhood because it's fucking dope. Like,
I actually talked myself out of it last Tuesday, and one of the girls from work went, and I don't know if she's done backies before, but she did one, and I was like, right. Was it cold? You know, because I saw Irish and Juan, and they were talking about how cold they came back. But this was pretty icy the day I saw them anyway. They were talking about wetsuits underneath, spare gear, that sort of gear. Summer though, sounds like a dream.
Honestly, I rode it in wind, like it was like June one year, and I had like just my outerwear on and a hoodie under my jacket.
And was sweet?
And I was fine. Like, because you're hiking, you stay warm. It's not that bad. And like, I did a double wildcat on the medium jump, like the 35.
Really?
Yeah.
Sick.
I'll give you footage of it. But it's like, you just go out and you do the tricks you wanted to. Like, I'd love to do a front double 10 again.
Wow.
But I'm like,
front dub 10, kids, hearing that?
But it's like, I don't think I'd go past the bag with it. Like I wouldn't do it on snow, I don't think, because the risk versus reward factor is not really there. Now I'm almost 40.
Yep.
But like I still would love to do front sevens on big jumps and back sevens and things. Like just get the thrill without too much of the risk.
Yeah. Would you hear that one? You were telling me that you were trying to get front double tens.
Yeah.
Big fella's got them on the bag, man. Come on. You got to get one soon, brother. Come on.
I used to do them in the power, and I did a couple on park jumps, but like that was when I was 30.
Yeah, I remember that. There's an Aussie movie you had, or what was that? Follow Me Round or something?
Ollie Pop or something.
Ollie Pop or something. You doing a couple in that?
There was one DC edit he did for me where I did like front double 10.
Yeah.
And I was doing back double 10s on the rainbow step down, but didn't ride out
get one. Well, you brought up rainbow step down there. Whistler days coming up over there would have been some pretty wild times, I reckon. I know a few of the people you spent some time with over there, Robbins and those boys. Tell us about those days.
Yeah, Whistler's rad. Like like the park on Blackcomb, that was the reason I went.
Yeah.
And Damon was the reason I went, because he told me, like, you know, you can ride backcountry. You know, like the power there's insane. The park is like the biggest jumps you can find globally. Yeah. So that's what drew me to it. And then, you know, obviously Riley Robbins was in the park every day as well. Yeah. Nick Barkle back then.
Sparkles.
Yeah. He had good style. Yeah. Some good tricks. Yeah. But Nick Gregory, huge fan of Nick.
There's a name right there. Yeah. He was the big dog, eh?
Yeah. And then Robbie Walker was there for a bit filming too. But it was just, you would ride power and like lap around the mountain with Dame and the boys. Yeah. And then they got sleds, so you didn't see them anymore. Yeah. And the rest of us were just riding park every day. Yeah. And we all got really good during that period. Yeah. And then years later I got a sled and started riding backcountry. And that was amazing. Like the shit you can access there. And
the weather
and just like scary big shit.
Then we went and hit this
just avalanche danger and exposure and the risks that you face out there too. And, you know, sleds and breaking down sleds and expensive.
And with the park there, like there's obviously an intimidation factor at any park, but like you being a young up and comer, did you have any of that when you got to there? I remember first time there it was you're seeing all this going on, you know.
Well, Chris Duffy was riding the park there when I got there. And he was like in the forum movies and stuff. So he's like,
you would have been obviously knowing exactly who he is and what's going on there. Then.
Yeah, I'd rock up and I'd see him and do a 450 on the rail, and you're just like in awe. Yeah. And like you'd come from Australia where you'd ridden Threadbow, and because you could do a couple of switch 720s and hit the big jumps, you thought you were the hot shit. Yeah. And you'd rock up there and you were just like, everyone was doing that shit. Yeah. So you just like
no stickers, no nothing.
Yeah, it just drove you to be as good as you could be and like try and be the top dog in that park. It was, and there was a contingent of Australians that were really good. Yeah. Like Riley was one of them. Yeah. But there was Nick Gregory.
Yeah, he was definitely the leader of the pack for a while there, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean we'd all be up the park riding, and Nick would come do switchback 9. Yeah. And we were all doing like switchback 7s and big cab 9s and things. Like Jake Coyer, Kiwi friend of mine, used to ride there. He was like one of the first Kiwis on Red Bull. Yeah. And he could do every trick up to 900 at the time, and that was like triple corks for the time. And just like there was a lot of energy and a lot of like very competitive.
For sure.
Yeah. And then Teeny came along. Yeah. He kind of he was friends with Amanda, my sister, and rode with her a bunch at Perisher. Yeah. And then he came and lived with us for the season over there. And he was like my little brother / shadow. Like he would ride off every jump behind me. Yeah. And try and imitate the tricks I was doing. Yeah. And we used to kind of laugh at him a bit because he would just like, he had kind of wild style. Yeah. Eat a lot of shit. Yeah. But then one day he just started clicking and like we started to land everything as well. Like, oh fuck, here he goes. And Teeny went on to do incredible shit.
Well, I was actually me, Riley, and I think maybe Dano, Grathede, Greathead, however he says it now.
He looks healthier than he used to when I saw him the other day.
Oh, you seen him the other day?
Yeah. Looking really healthy.
He's probably back in the gym. Yeah. So Dano, seen like the post the other day, mate. Yeah. Catch up with you next time. Anyway, what was I getting at? He's just taking me down a different road there, thinking about him. We went to bottom of Blue Cow was it Rock Garden? Us three and Teeny built a wedge in that wind lip that happens down the bottom.
Oh yeah.
And I think he did back, Sev, tail, first shot, and I was like,
Oh really?
who's this kid? Like I'd seen him in the park and knew he ripped, but like, and then he told us he'd never hit a jump like outside of the park. I'm pretty sure, or maybe the second one. And on the tube home, Riley was like into his stepdad, just like, you got to get him into Whistler, mate. You know, you got to get him. This kid's got a future, mate, over there. And I was like, fucking hell. Like,
Yeah, Riley, he had some intense eyes on him.
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He's
If he had a point, he'd look you right in the eyes and
get up in your face.
be like, sweet man.
Yeah, I'll do it, man. Cheers. Yeah.
He's an intense cat. But he was, like Ryan was really good early on, and he was competitive and super driven.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no surprise. He did what he did.
Well, you guys were like a dynamic duo for a while there on DC.
Yeah, it was funny. Like kind of looking back at it now, like we got a bit tense for a while because we had the same agent for a minute.
Yeah.
Like we were both kind of in the mags pretty regularly.
Yeah.
You know, winning events and things. And we had the same agent, and I got injured that year, and he didn't.
Yeah.
And he was like, he had like hit his peak and was like winning everything and unstoppable. And then basically the agent we had kind of left me in a position where we told them I was going to leave Rusty and go for DC for a better offer, and I was injured, and that Rusty should give him all the budget. So I lost like basically my whole travel budget and everything to him on a year where I like was injured and couldn't really do anything.
No.
So I was just like, oh God, and he and I kind of fell out for a year or two over it because I was dirty.
Yeah.
And it wasn't his fault. He was a kid, and you know it was the agent's fault in the end.
Yeah.
But, I ended up just signing with DC anyway.
Yeah.
And getting on with it, and then he came to DC a few years later.
Yeah.
But, it was funny, like being kids and like exposed to contracts and paychecks and all that, competition and all that shit.
Yeah, it's a tough world for a kid to try and be getting your head around that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and you see it with kids now too, like, egos getting in the way of certain things, or like not understanding things in a black and white sense.
Yeah.
Just like, too personally attached to like stuff like that. Because when it does get into contracts and your snowboarding and what you're worth and that kind of shit, like it's probably less of an issue now, but back then there was money and there was budgets.
Yeah.
And everyone was kind of like interested in what others were making and that kind of shit. So, it's
always hard putting a value on yourself too, I think, you know what I mean? You've got to sort of build to that with your own confidence as well, don't you? Like putting
and also be humble to an extent too, because some of us were all like, you walk down the street and your head's in a Dragon ad in the shop window, you kind of like, I'm pretty hot shit.
Look at me, mate. You're looking at me because you saw me.
But it was funny eras. There was a lot of money, so like everyone in your friend circle was like in the magazines, and like there was most of your riding crew was like in the ads. Yeah. It's kind of sad now because like the Australian magazines had all the Australian companies with their budgets invested in like local riders getting the ad campaigns. Yeah. And the local riders were in the closing in the videos locally in Australia and New Zealand, because the internet wasn't really a big enough thing then. Yeah. Where you didn't have access to a Transworld or a Snowboarder mag. Yeah. And they didn't have those hubs online that you'd look at. Yeah. So it was all print media or the mag or the video that came out. Yeah. So it was a very like focused budget, like focused kind of like core community. Yeah. Because I mean, unless you really looked for it and you were a nerd, like you didn't really know who say Devon Walsh was. Yeah. Unless you had access to like the MacDog videos or a Transworld snowboarding magazine, which you had to hunt down. Oh,
I was about to say, I remember having to like search for these during summer. Yeah. I remember I was up the Gold Coast at one point and I was like, there's a snowboard shop up here. Yeah. Maybe they'll have I can't remember what the DVD or the video I was actually looking for at the time. Might have been Happy Hour. Yeah. And I walked in and I knew the cover already because I'd seen it in the magazine of the promo. And as soon as I walked in, I could see the glass counter and I could see they're all on an angle. I could see the new TB and I could see that, and I was just like, kids now, someone does something, at the biggest event of the year, you're either watching it live or it's on the next day or within hours, you know what I mean? I
feel like the anticipation made it so much cooler too, because like,
oh, for sure.
you would like, if I was ever driving, like if we were ever in Sydney, like you go to the Manly Corsa and like there was a newsagent there, the big one that had Transworld and Snowboard in it, and I would just like be so excited to go there and like try and get that magazine if we were passing through, or like Balmoral Boards in Sydney. I used to go there and like try and get like the latest snowboard DVDs and bring my pocket money down and like try and get like as many as I could to go home and just watch on repeat.
Yeah, I remember dropping $100 and I had like $160 to my name for like a month or something. I dropped $100 on.
They were $30 each or something like that, and they're just like as many as you could until you ran out of money.
Yeah, as soon as I saw them, I was like, well, if I leave now and I've got this much money and I don't get them, I'll probably never see them again and I'll regret it. So like, I'll go hungry for a couple of weeks.
And you can't just buy it online. Like you have to go there physically and buy it. Like it's such a trip now because everyone's got mobile phones and like, you know, back then, like just the idea of like landlines and having to leave messages and shit. Like,
well, even with like a 1 year movie project back in the day, you know what I mean? You'd see the mag or the photo annual, see a shot of them, be like, what? You know what I mean? They'd have the little from whatever, and you're like, what? Then you have to wait another 8 months to see the movie, to see the part, to see the trick that was in the photo, you know, like that anticipation. I'll be always thinking, well, was it a front three? Was he alley-ooping? You know, like things like that. And you're just like, oh, looking at the snow, which way that's moving. You'd have to sort of...
Well, you'd have to wait till like, it would be like November every year or September when they release all the movies. Yeah. In the autumn for North America. And you would see like JP Walker's latest part, and he's like front board and double kinks that year, and you're like, that's the shit now. Like that's where it's at.
Everyone's going to be doing that this year. We're going to be trying it. We're going to find
like, it. Now someone does a new triple cork, it's on like Instagram that day. Yeah. And everyone the next day is like out trying something fucked up.
And the child that did it is straight out of the womb now, pretty much. They're just like triple 16. There you go.
Oh, dude. Just that like soccer parent, like crazy, like next level grommet type shit. Kind of freaks me out, to be honest.
It's a bit hectic, isn't it?
Yeah, like I was listening to Todd Richards on the Bomb Hole about it. And like, I think he said something along the lines of like, you know, let kids be kids. Yeah. And don't like overload them with like goals of like learning tricks. Like it should be about like, you know, there should be some magic, you know, like they're out there on the hill. Yeah. They want to like find the tree runs and like find side hits and like use their creativity. Yeah. Not just like get them to a park lap and just you like have to do relentlessly do that lap until you can do every trick there is. Yeah. Because it's just, I mean, there's your whole life for that shit. Yeah. Like, well, not your whole life, but you know, your whole team.
A lot of time, a lot of time anyway.
But just like, there's a lot of that around. Like you just see like, they're like, you hear parents like, I'm a dad of a 7-year-old son now. Yeah. And you hear a lot of parents saying, you know, like I'm investing this in my kid. I'm investing. It's like, if that's what you call an investment, you're terrible with your money. Like, it's not an investment. Like your kid is having fun doing a lifestyle sport, and don't fucking ruin it by complicating it with all this shit. Like you have to be hitting these levels or you're not good enough. And you see a lot of kids like, you know, like, is that good enough? What do you think? Like, you just like, did it feel good?
How'd it feel?
Like, it's, I just don't want to burn my kid out on like, you know, telling him he has to go to the airbag and has to do these tricks and has to do this on snow each year and write your trick list and this is where we got to get to. You see people do that and you're like, it's fucking...
It's pretty hectic.
Like, what are you telling your kid? Like, is his self-worth going to be tied up in snowboarding now?
Yeah.
Like,
well, if you are putting something into it and calling it an investment, what happens when you don't get a return?
Yeah, no shit.
Or that has a quiet year like you do with investing, you know what I mean? Like, are you going to be shitty at your child? Yeah. You know, like, is that... I don't think that's a cool... And is the kid going to feel like that? Like I just thought of that then, you know, is the kid going to be like that? If you're hearing, we're investing in your future, if you get to a point and pick up a guitar and want to forget about snowboarding for a couple of months or something, you know, during winter, like what's going to, you know, that mental of that, I don't think is healthy for any parent-child relationship or anyone really.
No such thing as like an elite 8-year-old I heard recently on an Instagram post. And you're like, oh yes, it's true. It's like, like I think a lot of times like once the kid clicks and they're watching snowboard videos and it's their dream and not yours, that's when you're gonna see some shit happen. And it's got to be like their dream, not the parents. Like, you know, like Mark Morris wouldn't be Mark Morris if his fucking mum and dad were like, this is our dream, go and live our dream. It's like he was that like because he wanted to be that. And my mum didn't, she's ski instructor, she didn't give a shit about snowboarding until we started like doing well in the comp, she didn't really know what was happening. She'd just rock up and be like, "Well, you guys are doing pretty good, huh?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "Cool." And then I was in the magazines, and then she started to carry a magazine around the bag and show people.
I remember that. I remember in the ski tube building in the Perisher Centre.
Yeah.
And Gaz knew her for some reason maybe through the bakery or something.
Chat,
yeah, maybe just chatting to her, and then she was like, "Whoosh, this is my son." And I was like, "Yeah, I know who he is." You know what I mean? We were like, yeah.
She was such a proud mum.
Oh, that's so good.
But but she wasn't the one driving any of it. She was just like, she was stoked that we'd done it, and we're out there like doing what we're passionate about and found our purpose, I guess. Whereas like, you know, a lot of the time you just see like people just really driving, like that's what you got to do. We're going to start an Instagram account. We're going to tag, you know, like a rhythm or something like that. And they're going to like notice you, and then we're going to get the deals, and you can be sponsored. Yeah. And then your childhood's just going to become this like job.
Yeah, there's steps to it, and you have to follow them, and you can't. Yeah.
Like if you're having fun, it'll work out. Yeah. And I remember being a hungry little dickbag that wanted to get sponsored, and I was like, "Damien, how do I get sponsored?" And one day he just turned around and he said, "You know what? As soon as you stop looking for it, it'll come find you." Yeah. He's like, when you're good enough, it'll come find
Someone's
you.
asking.
Don't ask. Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then literally next year, it just all happened. Yeah. But yeah, it was like that kind of like, holy shit, yeah. It's not about that, and I wanted to be sponsored because I didn't want to pay for the gear. Yeah. Because I was like working at McDonald's to pay for shit. Yeah. So, but I mean, most of these kids that like are doing it now have got like, you know, wealthy parents.
Well,
so it's like, you don't need to like go and ride for a company that you don't really get behind. You know, like if you can afford it, buy your own shit. Support the brands that you like. Yeah. You know.
Buy their stuff, and maybe they'll notice, and you'll end up getting it anyway. You know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're desperate, tag them, but like, fuck, who cares? Yeah, just have fun. Yeah.
And I mean, these days you can get last year's gear for pretty cheap anyway. For a kid on the come up, like you can just go get some gear. You don't need to.
And I've seen so many people like because of the circles I work in, like. You know, you're dealing with like the camps that we run. Like all these World Cup kids come to the camps. Yeah. And there's so many that like you've never heard of before that are fucking incredibly talented. Yeah. And you're just like, wow, like this kid I've never heard of just did switchback 16. Yeah. And like, you know, he might get a top 10. Yeah. And you're like, how good do these kids have to be?
Oh, for sure.
To even be slightly close within striking range of a podium. Yeah. And then how many times do they have to repeat that to be worth something? Because I mean, you know, like chicks will push your tits together on Instagram and get like more free product than these guys risking their lives.
100%, yeah.
And it's like you see that, and you're like, and these guys aren't happy unless they're like top 3. Yeah. And it's just like the toll it takes on everyone's mental health. Like their parents have invested so much money, or they've worked so hard to get to that point and invested their own money to get there. And then to get to those World Cups, you have to do the training camps because you can't just go ride a good park anymore because they're not good enough. And then, you know, if you're a half-pipe rider, it's a whole nother world because there's no half-pipes. Yeah. So you have to go to the camps to get to that level.
You might go to some far off other side of the world too to get there.
The kids that come to our camps are like travelling around following the camps that we're doing, plus the other ones, plus doing the comps. So the travel, you're probably dropping 100K a year just to like compete on a World Cup circuit. And then like, what's the return in that? I mean, these kids aren't even probably making that.
They're not even getting paid, half of them.
Yeah, and then like, you look around the mental health side of it, and you're like, there's kids on the podium that are like, maybe one kid on the podium's happy because he won. Yeah. The other 2 are like, could have done better. Everyone else that like went there and invested all this money to get to that point to like have a crack and didn't have a good day. Yeah, you're like, they're all fucking on suicide watch. Yeah, and he just like. Do I think that's snowboarding? Do I want that for my kid? Yeah. Fuck no. I want to be able to go take him for a nice holiday somewhere with his powder and ride together and have like those moments. It's like father and son, and it's a sport we love doing. Yeah. And we're creating memories, and that's like, to me, the lifestyle sport aspect, and that's where I think snowboarding has its greatest value.
And that's where like you brought up magic before. You know what I mean? Like. There is magic in it, you know, in the mountains. You come around the corner, seeing some of the most beautiful scenery you'll ever see, discovering things, you know, like, and learning tricks. Yeah. I think people that do understand that side of it and enjoy living in the moment and understand that's really important as well as competing and that sort of thing, you'll get that special person, you know, like your Rene Renakungas, the memorable people like that, or the Beyond Medals guys, you know, they've been the competitive, now they're like outside of that, they've got their own sort of world of that sort of thing, you know. I think that as a viewer of snowboarding is much more pleasurable to watch anyway for me, you know.
And Renee's incredible. Like what the run he did at X Games this year was like amazing to watch. Like, you know, like I was standing there at the big airdrop in, like cheering him on because he was up there and he was like saying, you know, like wild shit that's like funny and like uplifting. Everyone there was having a good time. Because the kid just has this fucking energy and he's like standing there. He's like, "Hey fellas, this is for snowboarding," and you're like, "Fuck yeah!" And then he would just drop in and do like the wildest switch, like double back riding 9 or whatever he's doing, like weird flips, tricks that like no one's seen. And they weren't scoring as well as, you know, like the 18s and stuff. But like everyone there that like knew shit about snowboarding was just like absolutely pumped.
Loving it.
And that was the highlight of all of our nights. And he was just like, you know, hyping people up. And just good energy. And like that's snowboarding in my mind. And like, you know, he was probably bummed that he didn't get the results he wanted to, and you were like sad for him. And you felt like, you know, but within like the confines of like what they're judging on, that's what it has to be. And you know, not to shit on competitive snowboarding because like it's amazing, and to see that like in person is just so incredible. And like the level of these riders and like how many times they land these tricks perfectly, and you're just like, you're in awe of just like how superhuman they are.
Just like,
you know, even like a Valentino Gazzelli, like you know, when you watch him ride, like he's like one of many of those like athletes that you just like fuck, and he's not even, you know, like he's on the podium a lot now, but like there's a lot of kids like really close to that aren't on the podium you probably never heard of. There's just like, and there's an army of them. And you're just watching the most insane stuff, and it's like it hits. But so it's not, and those kids like, you know, they're not out there living their parents' dreams. Like they're there because they want to push it. So it's like, not to shit on people at the FIS events and stuff like that. They're amazing athletes and they want to be the best, and like, and it's cool to watch that aspect of it too. So like respect on all that stuff.
They're in their own lane over there. You brought up X Games then. Progression in X Games more, or progression in jumps that you've built for private shoots? And what's the most progressive thing you've seen on one of your jumps?
One moment that stands out to me is like my brother-in-law Russell Henshaw. He did some of the first triples in skiing. And he did them on like a 95-foot jump I built in Whistler for him. And it was the first jump I'd built with an exit angle steeper than 40 degrees, which is like, it's kind of almost common now for the events. But back then it was like, you know, pretty groundbreaking for both of us. And he did these insane tricks with a helicopter following him. It was in one of the big matchstick production movies. Superheroes of Stoke. But that was pretty cool. I built a jump for Max Pro. He did a quad cork on it. A cab quad cork, something. A bunch of stuff for Mark. Like I built him the up rail. He did the switch. No, he did a backside. It was like a back tail, same way, 1160 or something out of. I remember. And I built so much stuff for Mark over the years. He's just absolutely shut down. With triple everything. Like I've been there for a lot of the first times he's done certain tricks on jumps I built, so I felt very privileged to be taken along for the ride with him.
There's some big names there. And
Torstein Horgemo, like the hip at Blue Car, that was like he went a back 1 and a back 5 over that thing. It was so big. I've still never seen anything like it to this day. But yeah, he's an absolute phenom as well. Like I had Torstein was the first one that kind of took me under his wing. From the park building career side, he brought me in on like to build like a lot of stuff for him for Shredbots. And then through that I met Mark as well and the Canadian team, and it just snowballed from there. So I got lots of really cool opportunities with those guys.
And so what's the process with, say one of those guys is calling you up, they know what they want, they're telling you what you want. Are you sitting down after you get off the phone, drawing? Are you having a Zoom call? How's that all work out?
Yes, the process is pretty straightforward. Like, say, like Mark will have an idea for a trick he wants, or a feature he wants to build. He just like, you know, would kind of hit me up and we'd talk about it, and then I'd sketch some stuff up and send it through. But a lot of the time it's like, you know, say Max said he wanted to do a quad cork, so you build a jump for the trick. Yeah. And then the same with Russell with that triple cork. Yeah. Like he knew what he wanted, so we just had to, you know, set the scene for it really. Torstein's one of those riders that's like really invested, which I hugely respect. Like even with his video productions, he had such an eye and like such a commitment to what he wanted. He would not like, he wouldn't settle for something less than what he wanted. So he was quite challenging to work with sometimes, but he just got insane outcomes all the time. Like he would even, when I was at Perisher running it, he would jump in the cat with me, bring a couple of bags of lollies, and we'd just like do the park rebuilds together. So like he'd sit in the cat, we'd have a sketch pad, he'd be like, we should have a rail here that we can do something to the side of the rail over there. And every park build we did during that era, there was like multiple rail lines that you couldn't see it, but there was lines between rails. So you would set people up to like find their own creative lines, but they're already there because they were planned. But like people were like, oh, I just did this off the wall ride and like went into the side of that rail and then popped back and did that. And you're like, yeah, no shit. Like,
dude, you thought about that already.
We were all sitting in there like teeing it up. And you know, like sometimes we go in with this elaborate plan and we're like, I'd be like, Todd, it's not going to work here because it's not enough space.
You can't do that.
You know, but the cat we could probably do this, and we'd just constantly be changing throughout the night. But it would evolve into like some pretty cool shit. And then even, you know, he ended up doing his Shredbot stuff there a bunch. And we did, you know, the flow lines through the trees and
that thing was sick.
Happy Valley and stuff.
Happy Valley. I remember me and the boys spotting that and just going, what is going on in here? Like ducking a rope, getting in there and just going, and then like someone on a sled, it was probably you and some crew like sitting there like, and we were like, and they were like, no. Because I think there was like something to a wall or tree or something. Wasn't there an ender? I remember seeing something and we were just like, that thing's sick, we've got to hit that. And it was like, as soon as we saw whoever it was, they knew who we were and we're just like, nah boys, just duck under down there, you know, have a look, but you can't ride here. We were like,
I'd have to watch it again. I can't remember. There was some kind of stall feature at the end.
I think that was probably what I would have been frothing on. Something low impact probably for me, a bit on that side. But we spoke about those builds. The big one out there, Blue Cow, was a massive highlight for me. I think was the first one was Torstein, or was that the Scotty James Jai?
I think Scotty James Jai. Well, no, Scotty James was part of Shredbots. For that movie. We did some stuff for Mark out there too. And he had Ulrich and Mikael Bang and everyone.
Oh, that's with the quarters down low, wasn't it, and the hip stuff. And
we had Pete Vane out there doing the excavation work on it when he worked at Perisher. It was crazy. We had like, it was me, Doug, and then Pete Vane was on the excavator, and we were like, it was just early on in those shark fin days, and everyone's building these shark fins that had like, there were huge step downs to like heavy impact landings. And like Mark was telling us, he's like, what if we built one that was like a step up? And I was like, well, why don't we use the excavator? And we built like a custom blade that had like tiller combing on it. So, and we bought it and had it implemented for the digger they have at Perisher. And we absolutely like perfectly shaped those quarter pipes with Pete, with the digger. And the quarter pipes were big, so like, and they were step up, so you had to haul ass at them. But Scotty was there for the session, and Scotty was like, he was just starting to be the guy, and he was doing triple corks on jumps. And he was like really starting to like get to the point where he's like rivaling Mark and everyone. And watching Mark and him go head to head on these things, Mark being, you know, the alpha and not wanting to see like Scotty outdo him, but Scotty was like, I'm here to make a name, and he was pushing, like he was the first one to do a triple on that jump. He was the first one to test the jump, and Mark's just like, what the fuck? And then the quarter pipe started happening. Mark did a front triple on that jump, Scotty did a back triple, and then the quarter pipe stuff, you know, Mark was doing his front doubles, Scotty was doing a couple of front double tens out of it too, and they're just like fully battling it out to try and outdo each other.
Yeah.
And then Mark came through at the end and was doing like this huge alley-oop, backside rodeo, nose grab. I think they were like, I don't know, maybe like 12s.
Yep.
Something like that, or 10s. But like, just that session and the energy.
Oh.
And I still feel like, back to that question of like the best snowboarding you ever seen, like, I think it comes down to like, not just the feature, but like the crew that you have.
100%.
It's like, you get these top level guys all together and they all want to like hit their peak.
Yeah.
And they're looking around and everyone's trying to like own the session. Like that's,
and
they're all egging each other on. Like those, like seeing that energy and like being there at the right time, on the right feature, on the right day, with the right crew is just like, that's when it happens.
Well, that's the magic that I'm talking of. Yeah, that sort of thing. I think, and if you put the talent together, we're talking. Well, Fridge was obviously our first guest on. Yeah. Him and Mons. He was saying he's been tight with him since they were little. You know what I mean?
They're incredible. And Mons, like, love Fridge as well, but I haven't as much to do with him. But Mons is like probably the nicest man snowboarding. Yeah. Him and Mikey Cicerelli. Yeah. And absolute fucking beast. Yeah. Snowboarder. Yeah.
Well, it's always good to hear. We've always, when I started this, I thought I only want to get people that are good people onto, because it means it's something about snowboarding that I found. A lot of people, like, they say don't meet your idols or whatever. A lot of people I met through snowboarding when I was coming up were dickheads to me or weren't nice people after snowboarding, you know what I mean? And that dries up pretty quick. I think that's a good example to show for kids, you know what I mean? That being a good person means a lot more than, having the right baggy pants or something, obviously, right?
I think these days more than ever, like the best, like some of the nicest people I've met are the ones at the top. Like Mark McMorris is like one of the nicest dudes. And I've seen, like, one thing that really impacted me, like, when you like hang out with kids or people younger than you and you like go, wow, I learned something from that person. Like Mark is one of those people, like, and I've seen it so many times, like in Susfay, we were after the Stomping Grounds camp one year, like, I had him stay on because he wanted to try some tricks. Yeah. So we just had sled laps on this jump I built, and he did. He was trying like backside quads, and like not landing them. Like absolutely getting bodied. And he's a weapon of a human being. But like there was this random English snowboard kid, probably like 18 years old, and he rocked up, and he's like, "Oh my God, is that Mark McMorris?" And Mark's having a fucking shit day. And he just goes, I'm like, yeah, it is, but he's probably not in the best mood right now. He's like, oh, he's like my hero. He's my favourite snowboarder. And I'm like, oh, sweet. And then he came down, and it was what Mark needed, I think, at the time too, because he was just locked horns with this trick he wasn't getting. And he was going to war with it. And he rocked up, and he was about to take his helmet and throw it by the look of it. And he saw this kid. And I just said to Mark, I was like, that kid's... you're like you're his like idol, basically. And he turned around and he like took a deep breath and he like one-footed over to the guy. And he's like, hey man, how you doing? You having a good day? And he's like, oh, Mark. And he's like, just started having like a one-on-one with him, and you have no idea Mark was having a shit of a time. Yeah. And the guy's like, oh, you're my favorite snowboarder. And he's like, and he just looked him in the eye and he was like, thank you so much. That means the world. Like, and to see, because a lot of people will like get a compliment and it's awkward, and they'll move on quickly. And sometimes I've done that too. But like when you see a professional like that, like he gave that kid that moment that he'll always remember, and it gave Mark a big up too. But like that kid felt seen, he felt heard, and he signed his helmet and sent him on his way. And then Mark just came back refreshed, got back on the sled, went up and laced the quad. Yeah, right. Stomped the fuck out of it. Right. And I was just like, holy shit. But him as a human being and how he could like switch into professional mode like that. Yeah. But then also like give the kid a minute to like feel it and not just be awkward and move on from the compliment quickly. Yeah. I thought it was really cool. But yeah. And then Mons Royston and Mikey Cicerelli are just like the same kind of people. Yeah.
Well, take note, kids. If you want to be a big dog like those guys, you've got to be a nice guy too. No one's going to remember it.
I'll tell you one person I didn't think was that rad. Yeah. Terry Hawkinson.
Really?
Yeah. Wasn't that cool of a human being. I'd seen him say some mean stuff about people before, and I was like, man, that's not that cool.
Wow.
Yeah. even stuff like you said some shit about Threadbow that like ticked me off.
Oh
It
yeah.
was about it being like someone was like, oh yeah, Threadbow getting a half pipe or something like that, and he was like, oh, good grass skiing hill or something dirty, and I'm like, dude, we're gonna punch down.
Oh no, Terrier. I saw someone put up something about him saying Threadbow, the Shred Resort or something the other day, but it was about the snow skates, maybe with RJ and that.
Yeah, but it was also another like,
another dig at the hill or
slap down
something.
about not allowing that stuff. But I think you might be getting paid post to say certain things, if you know what I mean.
Ah, yeah, right. Okay, yeah.
That's a whole other story.
Yeah, yep. Well, while we're on Threadbow, we're stomping grounds this year. Stu Mack wants to know when the pipe's up.
All right.
He might be going to do a couple of alley-oop McTwists or something.
Yeah, he had a good one.
Yeah, he used to do a sick one. In the
He was
Merritts
he
pipe.
had real Trevor Andrew vibes when I was a kid. Good style.
He always stuck to. He never said g'day to us when we were Groms too. Like,
he was a bit of a cock when he was young, but he's better now he's older.
Yeah.
But Threadbow's been amazing. Like the stuff with the half pipe's been really cool. Like I'd kind of been pitching to do the 22-foot pipe for 3 years because I acquired Parrish's 22-foot cutter because they were trying to sell it for a while because they got knocked back by national parks for the earthworks to build the 22.
Okay.
And that was a real shame. That was when I was the park manager there. They found like a Guthiga skink and they couldn't build the dirt works and the snowmaking in that area because of the skink. Yeah. Which was like super disheartening. But the half pipe cutter I bought for a Red Bull project for Mark in Revelstoke. So we bought it, we packaged it up, shipped it to Canada during COVID. COVID shut down that project for Red Bull. Then Red Bull wanted to build a half pipe for Scotty James in Australia before the Olympics. So we shipped it back for that. Scotty didn't want to quarantine and come back to Australia. So that got cut off. So I ended up with this, like buying this half pipe cutter and owning it. And it's just sat at Threadbow for years. And for the last, since COVID basically. And I'm just at a point where I was like, I just want to make something happen. And I hit up Threadbow and they were like, I was like, I can fund it all if you just give me the space up top. I'll make, we'll have a stomping grounds up there. Yeah. It's completely funded by the athletes that sign up. We'll raise the capital to build the pipe that way and no risk to resort. And their answer was, we can't do that because it'll piss off the public. So I was like, well, why don't we get a 13-foot pipe for public? Yeah. And we'll build the 13-foot pipe and then that's the public pipe. Yeah. One up top's too big for public anyway. Yeah. It's fine. And they're like, it's a pretty big vision, big undertaking. Like, it was a lot to digest. And then last year, I reached out to Mount Buller, like Nick at Mount Buller, the mountain manager there. I was like, I know you've got a 13-footer like sitting there. Can we rent it? Yeah. And he's like, well, it's kind of an old piece of shit. And I was like, well, if we rent it, instead of paying you, we'll just Threadbow spend the money and do it up, cover shipping costs and stuff. Yeah. And you get back a new one. So we did that. We built the 13-foot pipe and everyone loved it. And it was a bit of a hype thing. And then, so this year, Threadbow were like, we got to get one. We can't go in without one. Sick. And they were like, you can do 22 if we get the 13. Yeah. So I found one in Iceland. Scotty very generously donated the money to fund that public pipe. So hats off to Scotty. Yep. Legend. And then, we got the 22-footer that we're going to build for the stomping grounds funded by that. Yeah. So there's probably going to be some people that might talk a bit of shit like, oh, private, this and that, but it's not funded by the resort. It's completely funded by the athletes riding it. Yeah. It's basically just a crowdfunding thing, same as a jump. So we bought 2 snowmobiles last year for the jump. So we're not like asking Threadbow for their staff or their machinery. Yeah. We have our own cat that comes out from Preenorth for this camp. Yeah. And we bring out our own staff. And then with the half pipe, we bought a rope tow that I spent probably $30,000 on upgrading. So we've got like a rope tow for the pipe up top and the airbag and stuff. So it's a pretty big investment, but the camp's booked out and we're just hoping it keeps snowing. Sick. So we can make it happen.
Mate, it's a joy to watch. It's been a pleasure to watch your career go from a dude in a sling doing back threes in Leichhardt and to now investing in that sort of thing and giving, I guess, Australia and the world somewhere to train and got Gumtrees as a backdrop. I love seeing Australian snowboarding. I know a lot of other people do. Yeah. Anything else you want to say to the people at home watching, or anything about anything you want to say?
No, I think just with the stomping ground stuff, the public pipe will be up as soon as it can be.
Yep.
Thredbo's, put a lot behind it. So Scotty, I think it's going to go well.
Yeah.
The parks at Thredbo and Parrish are still going strong. And I think Australia's in a really good spot. And hopefully everyone keeps riding park and get behind it, because it's still one of the funnest things I've ever done.
Hell yeah. Well, you heard it. Backbone 4, Charles Beckinsale. We're out.
Thanks, bro.
Cheers. Thanks, man.
No worries.
You.